This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Casualty figures rise in battle to control the Libyan capital amid calls for a ceasefire. We take a look at the likely voting patterns among youth who never lived through the horrors of the Apartheid era in South Africa. And the latest from celebrations marking the coronation of Thailand's new king. Hello and welcome to Africa Live on CGTN with me, Beatrice Marshall, in Nairobi. Also ahead on the program, the state of the agricultural sector in South Africa, and why drinking very hot tea could increase one's chances of developing cancer of the esophagus. We begin this broadcast in Libya, where the battle to control the country's capital has been raging for 1 month now. Since 2014, the country has been split between the internationally recognized government of National Accord based in Tripoli and General Khalifa Haftar's rival government in the east of the country. Haftar's forces began their offensive in early April, but they have been facing counter-attacks from troops loyal to the Tripoli government. So far, the fighting is confined to the southern outskirts of the capital. An estimated 50,000 have been displaced. The UN humanitarian agency says that most civilians fleeing the fighting around Tripoli have been finding refuge with friends and relatives and have not registered with authorities. The GNA officials have been updating on the number of casualties.
The number of martyrs at this moment are 187 and 1,157 injured.
370 cases have been transferred to Tunisia in order to get medical treatment. Around 197 cases have been transferred to Turkey, around 10 cases to Italy, 3 cases to Germany and 4 cases to Ukraine.
Meanwhile, the Eastern Libyan forces known as the Libyan National Army are continuing with their month-long military operation to take over the capital. General Khalifa Haftar is still determined to proceed with this operation in what many experts believe would strengthen his position in any future negotiations. Here's CGTN's Adel Mahroui with more on that.
The battle over Tripoli enters its second month. Eastern forces led by General Khalifa Haftar are still attempting to breach the capital, while fighters allied to the UN-backed government are trying to push them away. Italy, the Western government's strongest European supporter, has called for a ceasefire.
When you look at the scene in Libya, you don't see any influence for Fayez al-Sarraj over Tripoli. Al-Sarraj is mainly influenced by the Islamic militias, who are in full control of the West. They enjoy Italy's backing. You can see that Haftar has set one foot in Tripoli. There is no doubt that a ceasefire is coming and talks will follow. When this happens, he'll definitely have an upper hand.
Backed by Egypt, UAE, Saudi Arabia and France, the Eastern forces led by Haftar want to push Islamists away from leading any position in Libya. The focus on Tripoli, however, has given room for ISIL to grow in the lawless south.
The south is the next biggest challenge. A great presence of ISIL militants is in Libya's south. Controlling Tripoli is only a matter of time, and Haftar has the forces to do so. I believe Libya's south is going to be the next hotspot this summer as ISIL enters its last territorial battle in Libya.
On Saturday, ISIL has confirmed growing fears that the civil war in Tripoli would nurture its presence. It claimed responsibility for an attack on a military camp that killed at least 9 of Haftar's troops. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
South Sudan's government is urging international donors to financially support the country's peace process. This comes as the parties to the peace agreement agreed to delay forming a unity government by 6 more months due to lack of progress in the security sector reforms. CGTN's Patrick Oyet reports.
South Sudan's peace deal dictates that a unity government be formed by 12 May 2019. It would be exactly 8 months since the country's peace deal was signed, but now an extension of the pre-interim period is adding 6 more months to the process. The signatories to the agreement say the delay to form a unity government is to allow for security sector reforms to be carried out. South Sudan's government says the lack of progress in the security sector reforms is as a result of lack of funds. President Kiir's government is urging international donors to financially support implementation of the deal. The East African Regional Body, the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, or IGAD, is overseeing the peace process. IGAD mediators say they will now present the position of the former warring factions on the extension of the pre-interim period to the Council of Ministers. The Council of Ministers meeting is scheduled for Monday in South Sudan's capital, Juba. Now that a delay has been agreed, analysts warn it will only help if parties to the peace agreement commit to fully implement it. Patrick Oyet, CGTN, Juba, South Sudan.
Tens of thousands are celebrating the crowning of Thailand's king this weekend. Elaborate celebrations are being held in Bangkok as King Maha prepares to greet his subjects today. A royal parade will be held across the capital from the Grand Palace to 3 temples where the monarch will honor Buddha. Earlier in the throne hall, he granted new ranks and titles to the royal family. The ceremonies will last until Monday. Ornate rituals on Saturday made him Thailand's first new divine monarch in nearly 7 decades. While the ceremonies are drawing tens of thousands of people, our correspondent Tony Cheng was at the royal procession and has more on the anticipation.
Well, as you can see behind me, there are queues of people going through security to get into that area where those processions are going to be taking place. We're expecting over 100,000 people to arrive, many of them from outside Bangkok. We've been in this area since about 6 o'clock this morning, and there have been an awful lot of people showing up. That procession is going to start on a palanquin, a bearer where the king will be borne aloft by guards. Then we understand he's going to take to the river briefly. And it's going to be the first chance that ordinary Thai people are going to get to see their newly crowned king. I think in contrast to yesterday's events, which were very archaic, these Brahmin and Buddhist ceremonies, pretty much all going on in the Grand Palace. Today is the first chance that ordinary people are going to get to see their king and to show some of that affection that they have for the institution of the monarchy.
We now have live footage coming in from the royal procession of the newly crowned king in Bangkok, Thailand. The king's coronation ceremonies take place over 3 days. Today, the new monarch is riding in the royal palanquin around the capital. This is the first time that ordinary citizens can catch a glimpse of the newly crowned king. Tens of thousands of people have been flocking to the capital to celebrate. Well-wishers line the 7-kilometer route from the Grand Palace to 3 royal temples where the king will pay his respects to Buddha. Well, those are live pictures coming in from the royal procession of the newly crowned king in Bangkok in Thailand. All the king's coronation ceremonies will now be taking place over 3 days. And today the new monarch is riding in the royal palanquin around the capital. And this is the first time that ordinary citizens are catching a glimpse of the newly crowned king. Tens of thousands of people, as you can see, have been flocking to the capital to celebrate. And well-wishers are lining the 7-kilometer route from the Grand Palace to the 3 royal temples where the king will pay his respects to Buddha. Tens of thousands are celebrating the crowning of Thailand's king this weekend. You can see there live pictures coming to you from the royal procession of the newly crowned king in Thailand. A royal parade, as you can see there, is being held across the capital from the Grand Palace to the three temples where the monarch will honor Buddha. The king's coronation ceremonies take place over 3 days, and today the new king is riding in the royal palanquin around the capital. Live pictures coming to you from Thailand. This is the first time that ordinary citizens can catch a glimpse of the newly crowned king, and tens of thousands of people are flocking to the capital to celebrate. Well-wishers are lining the 7-kilometer route from the Grand Palace to 3 royal temples where the king will pay his respects to Buddha. Live pictures coming to you from We're bringing you live pictures coming from the royal procession of the newly crowned king in Bangkok in Thailand. This is the king's coronation ceremony taking place over 3 days. And today the new monarch is riding in the royal palanquin around the capital. It is the first time that ordinary citizens can catch a glimpse of the newly crowned king. And you're watching as tens of thousands of people have been flocking to the capital to celebrate. And well-wishers are lining the 7-kilometer route from the Grand Palace to 3 royal temples where the king will pay his respects to Buddha. Well, earlier in the throne hall, he granted new ranks and titles to the royal family. The ceremonies will last until Monday. Let's now take you to Algeria, where the younger brother of Algeria's former long-time president Abdelaziz Bouteflika was detained Saturday for questioning. Said Bouteflika was picked along with 2 generals who previously ran state security agencies, according to a security official. The 61-year-old served as a special counselor to President Bouteflika before the ailing leader resigned under pressure on April the 2nd after 20 years in office. The arrest of the 3 key figures from the Bouteflika era underscored ongoing turmoil in the government as protesters at weekly Friday marches pushed for the rest of the old guard to go. Said Bouteflika was widely viewed in Algeria as the man at the center of a political system that enriched the oil-rich nation's industrialists, while young Algerians suffered rates of high unemployment. The government is yet to give an official confirmation on the detention. The Egyptian parliament has approved the government's request to extend a state of emergency for 3 months. Egyptian Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli said the state of emergency is essential in efforts to counter terrorism threats.
With a comfortable majority vote, Parliament has approved the Egyptian president's declaration of a 3-month state of emergency. It's a step the government believes is crucial to preserve the country's national security.
Egypt is surrounded by a belt of fire. There are instabilities all over its borders in Libya, Sudan and in Gaza. All this makes it vulnerable to active attempts of terrorist attacks, especially that several major projects are about to be inaugurated in the coming weeks, which could be threatened by such groups. So it has become evident that we need to extend the emergency state.
Under the state of emergency, security forces do not require prior judicial arrest or search warrants, which enables them to engage with potential threats immediately. It also helps in preemptive strikes against terrorist cells and hideouts.
The emergency state is created to face abnormal circumstances. Terrorism is on top of the list. It needs to be dealt with in different ways than what regular law provides, because regular law could obstruct security forces from engaging with suspected terrorists and searching their hideouts.
Egypt has been in a nationwide state of emergency since the 2 deadly church bomb attacks that took place in April 2017. Since then, the government has been extending the state of law continuously with the parliament's approval. The country has been in a continuous war against terrorists since it deposed Islamist President Mohamed Morsi in 2013.
In his speech to the parliament, the Egyptian Prime Minister vowed that this exceptional state of law will not be allowed to violate personal freedoms. He insisted that it will only be implemented in situations where public safety is under jeopardy. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, from the Egyptian Sinai.
To South Africa now, which is set to hold critical elections later this week. A unique section of voters has emerged, which analysts say could determine the election outcome. These are voters who never witnessed atrocities of the apartheid era that ended 25 years ago. Here's more on that story.
Campaigns have hit fever pitch in South Africa. And 24-year-old Abeste Mashigo cannot wait to cast her ballot. She is part of the 1/5 of the 5.6 million registered voters who never lived through the horrible days of apartheid. Recent developments in the South African nation make her see the need to be part of the change.
We need people, I feel like, with new ideas, new fresh innovations, so that we can sort of see, we're not saying it's going to be perfect, but we need more different ideas. People are going to come with something new. We've tried all the old methods already, and evidently it's not working because people are still really, really struggling.
The ruling ANC party ended the segregationist rule, but it's increasingly losing its dominant influence in the country's politics. Unemployment and poverty amongst the majority black population, together with the collapse of a number of public institutions, are some of the issues that threaten the party's traditional sway over a majority of the voters since coming to power.
To be quite honest, I'm not going to vote for ANC because now ANC has been giving us all these false hopes till now. All these scandals that now we've got a privilege that we see where our money is going. We see that they're actually promising us the opposite of what they've said they will be doing.
The opposition outfits have previously capitalized on such perceptions to win seats in municipalities within Cape Town and Johannesburg.
The leadership of the country must be fixed first in order for us to succeed. But Ramaphosa, I think, because he's a businessman, maybe he'll do better. I'm not saying he will fix the mess that what is happening now, but I think he can manage to fix some of the things because we have lost 10 years of the country.
President Cyril Ramaphosa has pledged to end corruption. However, other issues such as land ownership and mining laws, perceived to be unfavorable, continue to be a challenge for his ANC party. Beryl Oro, CGTN.
And we still have more news for you here on the program. To stay with us.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself? If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Economic data out of the country. The country's foreign currency reserves.
With a dedicated and diverse team of anchors, CGTN now brings Africa to the palm of your hand.
been in a Caribbean in the heart of Nairobi, which is bustling.
From everyday heroes to the continent's most powerful figures, we bring their voices to you.
We haven't changed. And this is something most of us are very excited about.
We bring you news that's changing perspectives.
Reporting from Nairobi City Center.
News that brings Africa to the world. CGTN. See the difference. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Scientists are investigating a possible connection between the average temperature that people have tea and cases of cancer of the esophagus. The preliminary findings suggest that people in Kenya, particularly in the western region, drink the hottest tea in the world. Researchers believe tea drinkers who like their tea to be warmer than 60 degrees Celsius are at a higher risk of developing esophagus cancer.
Steaming hot and straight from the pot. This is how many Kenyans like their food. In fact, the hotter, the better.
Most people prefer hot or warm food because this is the cold season. If you eat cold food, it will affect you. But if you eat hot food, you will feel warm and energetic.
In Kenya, hot food is widely believed to be healthier, while cold food is viewed as dull and unsatisfying. But scientists now warn that danger lurks in these popular piping hot meals. For years, researchers have sought to establish the effects of very hot food on the esophagus, the tube through which foods which have been swallowed reach the stomach. A study published in the journal Cancer Epidemiology identified thermal injury from hot food and beverages as a possible cause of esophageal cancer.
It is an irritant heat. You are causing ulceration of the lining of the esophagus and the throat. And once you cause this constant damage to the lining, it leads to mutation and finally leads to cancer. So it's carcinogenic to cause constant irritation of the mucous lining.
It's bad news for tea drinkers from Kenya's western region, who are among those who take the hottest tea in the world. While investigating the possible link between the temperature at which people consume their food and possible cases of cancer of the esophagus, scientists found that Kenyans like their tea the hottest, taking it at 72.1 degrees Celsius. Researchers found that tea drinkers who liked their tea to be warmer than 60 degrees Celsius and took more than about 2 large cups daily had a 90% higher risk of developing esophageal cancer.
The ideal temperature is the body temperature, which is about 37 degrees centigrade. Anything above that will be damaging the cells. The cells are designed to survive within the body temperature.
Cancer of the esophagus accounts for 11% of new cancer cases in Kenya. The news has had a jarring effect on tea lovers.
Food should not be too hot or too cold. It should be warm.
But the studies are not conclusive, and researchers suggest that the evidence should be evaluated further. And as scientists seek a conclusive answer across the country, tea lovers grapple with the idea that hotter might not be better after all. Wilkisanyabo, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
And from the hot tea health risks to a rather chilling delicacy, chocolate vanilla or maggots. Insect ice cream is literally up for grabs in Cape Town, South Africa. Made from fly larvae, the sweet treat is a high protein and sustainable alternative to dairy-made ice cream.
There has been a growing interest among Western consumers over the last few years for insect snacks, perceived as a more environmentally friendly food source. Now maggot farming is starting to feed the demand. Operating out of the Cape Town University of Technology, retailers Gourmet Grab are using black soldier fly larvae as a basis for ice cream.
Insects are typically environmentally friendly and sustainable to farm because they use very little land, water and food to grow on. They aren't at risk of climate change because you can grow them in a controlled environment, sort of in a closed area, so you don't have the effects of drought and all those other things that are associated with climate change. And what's really great is they produce a lot of protein and fats and minerals by growing on what would typically be considered a waste product.
The company claims fly larvae are processed together with other natural ingredients. Flavors such as cocoa and honey are added before being mixed together with the larvae in an ice cream making machine. Though nutritious, these ingredients might not appeal to everyone.
The problem is one of culture, convincing people that this is something that they should be able to eat. Certainly from an environmental perspective, they're less damaging than the meat industry, which currently accounts for about 25% of global emissions, and that's a huge concern.
Gourmet Grab sells its insect ice cream at the weekly Old Biscuit Meal Market in Cape Town. Customers appear keen to try the unique treat.
It tastes organic, basically like how you'd expect like a vegan ice cream maybe to taste. So it's nothing too unusual for sure. Something that I can expect people eating quite comfortably.
It tastes pretty good. It tastes like ice cream should taste. A little bit more earthy, a bit more organic taste. But yeah, I'm pretty happy. It tastes like ice cream to me.
The Gourmet Grab team believes products like their ice cream are helping to make insect food more acceptable.
You think insects, and a lot of people have a mental barrier associated with that, but the ice cream has played a significant role in helping especially the Western consumers overcome that mental barrier.
And with healthy lifestyles gaining more popularity, perhaps such insect-based treats can remove the guilt from partaking the pleasurable ice cream. Beryl Oro, CGTN.
8-year modern knights from across the world compete at a medieval fighting contest called the Battle of the Nations. The 10th championship is being held this weekend at a fortress in Serbia. It will culminate with a big battle involving 150 fighters on each side. A team from China is attending for the 3rd year in a row. This weekend, they competed against the strongest opponent, the Ukrainian team. CGTN's Alhosa Milenkovic has more.
His name is Wang Sai, and he is China's trump card in 2019 Battle of the Nations. At age 33, he's a former star in UFC mixed martial arts with 24 wins and 6 losses, and only a month ago decided to join this sport as a member of Team China. Minutes before he entered the ring, team colleagues shared their enthusiasm about Wang Sai.
Our expectation is the gold medal, of course, the world championship, because Wang Sai, he is world championship of China's first middleweight mixed martial arts world championship of our country. And this is the first time a professional Chinese mixed martial arts professional fighter participated in historical full armor contact fight.
And their expectations were fulfilled. Wang Sai not only crushed his Hungarian opponent in this match, but also won in 3 out of 4 matches he had on this day in Smederevo. The Chinese team is confident their new star will win a top medal in the final day of the competition. While Wang Sai is the reason for so much Chinese pride here, expectations were more muted for the Chinese team in the 30 against 30 match. Here they are, arriving at the arena, but with so-called mercenaries as part of their team.
And we have 14 Australian fighters, 2 Canadian, and 6 from New Zealand. Yeah, they every year we fight better and grow strong and even more good. Yeah.
Without enough Chinese fighters, the team needed to join forces with other nations, and they faced one of the championship favorites, Ukraine. In 2 rounds, all sides used the full force of their weapons and all their strength to throw opponents to the ground.
It looks very brutal and violent, but at the same time it gives us an idea of what these battles looked like in the Middle Ages. Although back then swords and axes were razor sharp and the protective equipment wasn't supported by 21st century technology.
In the end, the Chinese team was overpowered by superior and more experienced Ukrainians. But they take away experience on a learning curve they hope will lead to victory next time. Aljoša Milenković, CGTN, Smederevo, Serbia.
And a closer look at your business news coming up next. Here's what's ahead. We'll take a closer look at the state of the agricultural sector in South Africa.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Agriculture contributes around 10% of South Africa's total export earnings at a value of more than $10 billion. However, with just 1% of all agricultural land in the ownership of black farmers and just over $35 million of local government funding going towards land reform since 2014, it has become a pressing issue that faces both the local and national government. CGTN's Travers Andrews reports.
Like the rest of South Africa, the agricultural industry is critical to the Western Cape's economy. It contributes roughly 35% to the regional GDP and is the largest employer of unskilled labor in the country. In fact, more than 30,000 jobs were created in the agri and agri-processing industry in the third and fourth quarter of 2018. And now, even against the backdrop of the drought, the local government promises nothing less. But it's a sector that remains largely untransformed, especially in the wine industry, where the barriers to entry for black farmers are just too prohibitive.
Many of the current wine farmers made their money elsewhere before they went into wine farming. So for a new entrant who is black and from a previously disadvantaged community, it is virtually impossible to do so without grant funding.
It is a vexing issue then, in which the national government has to balance grant funding to black farmers, food security issues, and fostering a sustainable agricultural industry. But with profit margins of just 1% in traditional markets such as Europe, wine farmers have had to diversify the interest to stay afloat. And that over-the-top investments in the businesses have also made barriers to entry for new entrants even more financially prohibitive.
Fact is that right now you're not dealing with farmers in these cases, but with real estate. And the improvements on these lands cost a pretty penny, because a cellar can go into millions of dollars if you want to put up a proper cellar, and I'm talking about US dollars now.
But land expropriation without compensation is one step which is being touted to redress the current level of transformation. But the jury is still out on whether this effectively will speed up transformation in the industry. Many black farmers believe land expropriation without compensation is not the be-all and end-all of their problems. And many believe the government needs to take a more proactive step in dealing with the situation.
There should be a definite end to the rhetoric and the sloganeering, and implement expropriation without compensation, and don't pay these farmers anymore unless it is found there's exceptional cases where people need to be compensated. And that should only happen in exceptional situations where people are being paid. So that is the first thing.
So while most farms have turned to new ways to mitigate the effects of the drought, others have turned to innovative ways to speed up inclusivity and shared ownership, which will no doubt become an important economical and social issue before and after this year's elections. Travis Andrews, CGTN, Cape Town.
South Africa is famous for its vine vineyards and wine exports to the global market. Despite the pressure from climate change and access to more global markets, the wine industry remains a promising sector. CGTN's Uche Okoronkwo toured the Groot Constantia estate, established in 1685 in Cape Town. It is the oldest vineyard in Africa.
The Groot Constantia is the oldest wine farm in South Africa, going back to 1685. So celebrating more than 3 centuries of winemaking here.
Give me a sense of how much wine you produce here and what are the different varieties you have to offer.
Consumption today is 140 hectares, so that's about 300 acres total. Under vineyard, it's about just short of 100 hectares. So in a good year, we produce between 500 to 600 tons of grapes, and that'll yield between 400 to 500,000 bottles. So just short of 500,000 bottles a year that we do.
Wow. Now, you're not just a vineyard, you're also a restaurant, you provide different services. Give us a sense of what it has to offer. Yeah.
That's correct. We're very close, that we are 15 minutes from the city centre, so we're literally on in the southern suburbs of Cape Town. You know, if you look over there, you'll see all our neighbours' residential area. So the proximity to Cape Town means there's a lot of visitors. We get again 450,000 people visiting the farm last year, so it's a very popular tourist destination. On the farm we have two restaurants, Jonkershuis restaurant over my shoulder and Simon's just behind the production cellar. So yeah, two cellars. There are also, because of the historical background, there's the museums as well. There's a cultural museum, as well as the old production cellar with a bit of winemaking history as well. And the production cellar open for visiting cellar tours and vineyard tours 7 days a week. So yeah, very, very popular tourist destination as well.
Now, what happens with the wine you produce here? Is it sold locally? Do you import it internationally? Give us a sense of what.
Most of the wine, so a lot of the wine sold off the farm. We sell about 25% of the wine from the estate. You can imagine, with nearly 500,000 people, there's a very big demand for wine on the farm here, especially the two restaurants. Yeah, 50% of the wine sold locally, and then 50% export. And exports spread pretty evenly across the globe: America, UK, Northern Europe, Germany, Belgium, Netherlands. And then trying to establish a market in China. China is quite a small part of the business at the moment. So I've already been there. Our vineyard manager has been there. Our CEO has been there. So we are trying to get a stronger foothold in China as well.
Right. What about other markets across Africa? What are some of the markets you're looking to expand into? Some of the new markets you're hoping to target going forward?
I've been to Kenya, your beautiful country. Not really successful, unfortunately, establishing a market there. In conversation with Nigeria as well. So we're definitely looking at expanding in Africa as well. There's amazing potential in Africa. There's a lot of excitement in Africa. So we'd really love to venture, like I said, specifically Kenya and Nigeria. But yeah, we're still working on it.
Now, South African wine is actually quite popular, and not just in Africa, across the world. What would you say the industry has been like in the past few years? Are you seeing strong competition from other new markets, or is South African wine growing in popularity?
It's definitely growing, not as quickly as we would like, but it's definitely growing. Again, taking the US, which is the biggest market, US just boomed over the last 10 years. And South Africa didn't really get a piece of the pie. But you take very strong markets like the UK, for instance, we're slightly increasing. The size of the industry, so it's tricky to say, the size of the industry is shrinking at the moment. The vineyard industry, the winemaking industry is tough, and we've probably shrunk by the vineyard size. Probably shrunk from 102,000 hectares to about 92,000 hectares over the last 10 years. So it's slightly smaller. But where we're going to is we need to sell more bottle wine in the overseas market, not bulk wine. Bulk wine is not really very profitable. So, but from that point of view, we are seeing the bottle wine increasing in our biggest markets, and also the average price point increasing in the big markets like the UK. Right. So that's where we are. So yeah, so it's not an expanding production and an expanding market. It's very slow growth, but like I said, we're looking at increasing bottle prices, and we're slowly getting there.
Now, you mentioned the market is shrinking. Give me a sense of what the challenges are that has led to this, shrinkage.
Farming cost is getting very expensive, and the prices we realize, especially in the export market, it's not really where we would like it to be. So you mentioned other countries as well. Chile and Argentina obviously been making wine for a very long time, but very strong competition for us in a lot of our popular markets, US and UK. So yeah, Australia, New Zealand also there, interesting, Spain as well, Spain, Italy, but yeah, new world markets like Chile and Argentina, big competition for us.
Now you mentioned the US a lot, it's one of your biggest markets.
That's correct.
Did you benefit from the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, the AGOA?
No, not really. No, not really. It's very tricky. America is it's a tricky market for us at the moment. On the one hand, you need big brands. You need a big brand because America is such a big market to really sort of go above the line and advertise. You need a very strong brand to really sort of establish South Africa as a brand there. And there's not really a producer that's big enough to take on the American market. So AGOA as such is great, but we haven't really seen any benefits. No.
Now the UK, Europe, those are two of your other big markets.
That's correct.
How do you think Brexit is going to impact how South Africa?
Yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky. We'd like to think that Brexit will benefit South Africa. And the first thing is, just get it over and done with. Because I think that you can see that, everyone in the UK is nervous, so they're not spending. So you can see that the spend is really down in the UK over the last few years. And yeah, we've seen our markets also a bit shrunk in the UK. So, but yeah, sort of losing trade agreements with Europe will definitely benefit South Africa. But not only us, like I said, our competition like Chile, Argentina, Australia. I'm sure that they're also sitting there waiting for similar opportunities. So, but I know Theresa May was in South Africa recently. So, whether she'll be in power for much longer after Brexit, that's still to be seen. If Brexit is going to happen, but we'll see. So, but there is some optimism that there might be opportunities for us.
Now, bringing it back home to South Africa, you do have an election coming soon. What especially does the wine market want to see from the next government in terms of boosting the agriculture sector and ensuring that South Africa's wine industry, thrives?
Well, the first thing you need is stability. I think it's really tricky to operate in the market because we export, so obviously a lot of our income is exchange rate related, and then also imports. Barrels and corks are imported, so I think just a more stable currency will also make life a lot easier for us. So stability, and then if we can get some support, there's very little support in the agricultural sector at the moment. So just some support, whether it's some benefits, fuel or whatever, some benefits. I know that the president was in contact with a few wine growers in Stellenbosch a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, we are optimistic that there's always a bit of instability before elections. So we just hope for more stability and then some support after the elections.
The third edition of China Trade Week has taken place in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. The three-day fair, which kicked off on Thursday, attracted more than 100 exhibitors. Ethiopian Ministry of Trade and Industry says there are more than 400 Chinese investments in Ethiopia currently, valued at over $4 billion. This, the ministry says, has in turn created more than 100,000 job opportunities for locals. The exhibition hopes to create opportunities for local and regional businesses to develop direct trading links with high-end Chinese producers.
In response to the international One Belt, One Road initiative, we asked ourselves, what can SMEs do and what can private companies do? So we created a platform such as the China Trade Week so that SMEs have the opportunity to go to the African market like those big enterprises.
The road belt, more trade, more investment, more interaction, more networking, big business, and it's big opportunity. It's a big initiative that will really support Africa.
And to stay with us as we bring you more African news, here's what's ahead. Egypt's latest archaeological discovery from over 4 millennia ago excites the country's tourism sector.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Qanater, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Egypt has unveiled its latest archaeological discovery dating back almost 4,500 years. Ancient Egyptian tombs for elite members of a royal family were found in pristine condition. The new sites will be part of a massive facelift for the tourist area around the pyramids of Giza. Here's CGTN's Adel Mahroui with more.
The Egyptian Antiquities Ministry is celebrating a precious discovery at the Giza Pyramids Plateau. 3 tombs who belong to the elite members who supervised the building of Kefir Pyramid, the second largest pyramid in Egypt.
This vast landscape is known as Tari. For long it's been marked to contain tombs of the labor who've built the pyramids. An Egyptian excavation team was looking for later period ancient Egyptian tombs. To their astonishment, they've found sarcophagi for members of the 5th dynasty, who lived here more than 4,400 years ago.
To discover an Old Kingdom tomb also within the 26th dynasty tomb is very important. It tells us about the people who maintained the cult of the king, and also to re-establish again on dynasty 26, because we do have that Khufu was worshipped as a god on the 26th dynasty. The workman tombs are different completely. The workman tombs are very important. They are proving to the world that the builder of the pyramids were Egyptians and they were not slaves.
The most prominent figure in this discovery is known as Behenwika, a top judge and the supervisor of the construction of Kefir Pyramid. Buried with him in the same tomb is Nuwi, the grand priest of the Holy Court. Colorful wooden artifacts were also discovered in these sites.
Any archaeological discovery, even a small one, add a lot to our knowledge in Egyptology. We discovered a small cemetery to the southeast of the Pyramid of Giza, one well-preserved tomb from the second half of the 5th dynasty. We discovered 6 colored coffins. The excavation is only beginning. I think that we have many seasons to work in this area.
Thousands come here to Giza to be amazed by the sight of one of the last standing 7 wonders of the world. Soon, when these tombs and other new discoveries are prepared, this area will provide a comprehensive experience of the ancient Egyptian civilization to its visitors. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
2 young artists who grew up in a shantytown are Nigeria's latest singing sensations. After being discovered on a local talent show, they are working to establish their music careers. Their success has even inspired the launch of a record label that taps into emerging talent from disadvantaged communities. CGTN's Brian Toussaint finds out more.
Dixon Adire and James Nomini are on a radio show in Lagos to promote their music. Both are from central Nigeria's Benue State. After being discovered on a local talent show, they are the country's newest singing sensations.
I feel very happy. It feels like a dream come true. Thank God for everything. My music is being heard almost every radio station in Nigeria, and I'm very happy.
17-year-old Adire says it took years for him to get noticed, but he never gave up. He's recently released a single that's been playing on the airwaves. 13-year-old Nomini finds any opportunity he can to record songs. He hopes to secure a better future for his mother, siblings, and grandmother.
I've always loved music. I started music at the age of 10. I used my mommy's spoon. I play instrumentals and I rap to it. Sometimes I sing to it. And I always go for competition at the age of 10, 11, 12 and 13. But I got my breakthrough at the age of 14.
The two artists aren't just inspiring other musicians struggling to make a break. They are also inspiring music producers.
Go to school on Monday. Go to the studio on Friday.
The motivation is the talent that I saw, Tubo when I went to direct Tubo Got Talent. I saw that these two kids were so talented and I couldn't pass on them. So I decided because of them to launch a record label to help the less privileged and those in the community, in the society, in Nigeria and all the rest of Africa.
My guys, couldn't you want to be getting money for bank on my pocket?
Like the Nollywood film industry, music is big business in Nigeria. Afrobeat artists are now selling out concerts not only across Africa, but the US and UK too. Brian Toussaint, CGTN.
And your sports news coming up next. Here's what's ahead. The NBA's online expansion plans for basketball fans in Africa.